Hello, everybody. Fred Favors here. Welcome to another edition of Harvesting Greatness Black to the Future. And we've got some major things to talk about today. Like and subscribe. The way we get our content out is for you to like and subscribe so many more individuals around this country can see some of the things that are happening to you and to me and how we can devise a plan to make change happen. All right, first of all, Bill Cosby. So much has been said about Bill Cosby to destroy, yes, to destroy his legacy. That's basically what's going on with the media. Every time you see the media talk about Bill Cosby, they'll say to disgrace Bill Cosby. Well, I want to make a point about that. When you say to disgrace Bill Cosby, let's talk about someone you can kind of recognize, King David from the Bible. Now, everybody knows King David was a great king, great man. We think about Goliath and how he destroyed Goliath and became king and what have you. But King David, the great King David, had his own general, top general, killed so he could marry Bathsheba. Now, one would look at that and say, this is not the most judicious thing a one could do, send your best general to the most dangerous battle, knowing he probably wouldn't come back. But you send him, King David, he does perish, and you marry his wife. Now, it doesn't get any worse than that. We don't say to disgrace David, right? Bill Cosby was innocent, as the court says, innocent from all of these charges. No one ever presented any real evidence that Bill Cosby was guilty, to my eyes. So now we have a woman who says, with trial coming up on, I guess, the 22nd of next month, or next year of April, 1922, I guess, or they're saying. But now Bill Cosby will have to defend himself again against a woman who was 15 years old at the time in 1974. And she says Bill Cosby took her to the Playboy Mansion, drugged her, sexually attacked her. So, from 1974 to today, what proof do you have that this occurred? Did anyone see this happening? I mean, I think she filed this in 2014. But you're talking 1974. Now, the criminal case will probably go nowhere. But Gloria Allred, the attorney for this lady, is not concerned about that. She's concerned about the civil case that could award her a nice chunk of change. That's basically it. So this thing will take place next year or in April. There's this trial. 15 years old, she said at the time. Of course, she's somewhere 60 or 70 years old today. So, what proof do you have that this happened? And why are we even talking about this? If it happened in 1974, no witnesses, no proof, what are we talking about? So I want to play you a clip of Bill Cosby this week, next week, and the week after that, the three-part series on some of the great, incredible work. Not only the $100 million that he's given the historic black colleges, no, that's just some of what Bill Cosby has done. So if you want to destroy his legacy, I'm not going to let you do that here on this podcast. Three-part series with Bill Cosby, and one of the things I told you about last time we were here, that Bill Cosby did a thing on race and education. It was an interview that he did. 1968, he did this interview. So we're going to play a little bit of that right now, let you hear it, and then we're going to talk about that after you hear it. About 2 or 3 minutes, but some of the most incredible stuff that Bill was talking about in regards to the election that was taking place at that time in '68. I think George Wallace was running for president at that time, and of course Richard Nixon was running for president at that time in '68. So he's talking about a time that a lot of you were not around at that time. But this is a young Bill Cosby talking about things that concern you and I. Listen to this.
But the importance of Black history, I mean, you just can't measure it, man. Because then And I think this is why people don't want to serve it, and they don't want to put it out, because then most people will really realize that we have done something, you know, as a group. When they say we, I include all of us, man, because, the cat's going to vote for Wallace. He's talking about keeping niggas in their places, see, or keeping the nigga in his place. He's not talking about everybody except Bill Cosby. No, he's jealous because Bill Cosby's got some bread, too.
Yeah.
He's jealous because Harry Belafonte's got 2 Cadillacs or whatever. And he just assumed that this whole country be all white, you see. Uh, I just feel that if we can get the history put in, that isn't the only thing, but that is a very important thing, man. And it's an example of the racism and bigotry that exists in this country,
Right.
because look at how harmless it is, you see, to say that a certain person did something and they did this and so forth and so on, and make it a part of an exam, but they refuse to do it. Before, last year, I excused the teachers and the school system for it because, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, if you don't have it this year, all right, that's because you're not prepared, but you have the summer. Go to your library, go to the reserve book room, read, find out, black heroes in World War II, black heroes World War I, so forth and so on. Men who have invented things. The real black man who was with Lewis and Clark.
Right.
The cat who went to the North Pole, how much he did, so forth and so on. Let's get all this together, man.
All right. Bill Cosby, I want to stay on this for a minute because I just remember in my living room watching one of the newscasters talk about Bill Cosby, and they said, the disgraced comedian. We talked about this last week. The disgraced comedian is what all of them are saying, so it gives you a perception that this man is no good. It gives you a perception that this is his legacy. So you determined that his legacy will be the disgraced Bill Cosby. Well, I wasn't in any of those rooms from those 30-odd women who presented the case against Bill Cosby. I wasn't there. You weren't there. We weren't there. We don't know the whole factual evidence behind this. Some of the women who were claiming Bill Cosby did this or that, they claimed it, but they actually were seeing Bill Cosby after that particular time. So let's say someone claims that you date raped them, drugged them, and then you call them the next day and the week after that and the week after that. I don't see where, what are we talking about here? So as you can see and you can hear, Bill talks about some of the things that are near and dear to him. This is a great man. We all have some faults. I don't think Bill is perfect. You and I are not perfect. King David was not perfect. But when we start trying to destroy a person's legacy, we should have a little bit more to chew on than what's going on in this Bill Cosby situation. Next week, I'm going to play a little bit more of this race and education. You guys are well able to go and Google Bill Cosby race and education, and there's some other stuff that Bill did that I really like. But this man is the real deal. This man has done more for the education and the promotion of African American people, brown-skinned people, than almost any person alive. This man has a tradition of support for his people. In the times of the 1960s, when very few people were able to go out and speak their mind, Bill Cosby spoke his mind, as you were hearing. This interview was 1968. And he's a prominent actor. And so he has no fear in losing his opportunities to act because someone heard or got a chance to hear his comments in regards to black people in this country and what we're up against. Phenomenal thing. So I wanted to keep you fresh on Bill Cosby. Those of you that have been up to what's going on with Bill, yes, there is this last situation that Bill has to deal with next year in April 2022. I apologize, I said 2022. And 1974. How in the world? What evidence? I mean, this is just crazy. We're even talking about this. All right. So next week, I'm going to continue on with more on Bill Cosby as we push the narrative of what the real legacy of Bill Cosby is all about. And if Bill, if you're out there, you ever get wind of this particular podcast, I want to bring you on and interview you. You or your spokesperson, either one or both. I think that your story needs to be told, and I think African Americans and brown-skinned people need to hear your story. We need to hear your story up close. We've heard bits and pieces of your story, but we haven't heard the real story, and we need to hear that from you. So, again, Bill Cosby, next week we'll continue on part 2 of a series, Bill Cosby, the real Bill Cosby, the legacy of Bill Cosby. We're pushing that here on this podcast. Gloria Allred, it seems like every time there's a case going on of this kind, Gloria Allred is right there pushing it. Holding the women as they talk, as they cry, caressing them, probably giving them, chunk of change every time they shed a tear. And you're talking about this Gloria Allred, who I have a bad taste in my mouth for, but it seems like she's like, the legal ambulance chasers, where this is her ambulance fishing for money. You won't get anything from the criminal case. There's not enough evidence. There's not enough evidence for you to get anything on the criminal for him to go back to jail. Not enough. The only thing you got is civil, where you can get a couple of dollars. And that's what I believe Gloria Allred is trying to do. Marva Collins, the legendary, incredible educator, passed away in 2015. Why is she important? Because she created something that I believe needs to be in school systems, especially in your inner cities across America. I'm going to play a segment of this woman and some of the things that went on in her classrooms and why she was so successful with those inner city kids that nobody else could do anything with. She had a standard. She set a standard for them. Why is it important? Well, look at the numbers, and then I'm going to play this clip of Marva Collins and how she ran her schools. Parents, you ought to see this. If we were lucky enough to have a school system that dedicated itself to running the way Marva Collins ran her school, we would not be looking at numbers like this. 75% of black kids in California cannot read or write at grade level. Not 7%, not 5%, 75%. These are the numbers from 2020. They haven't changed this year, I'll guarantee you that. That 75% can't read or write at grade level. And let's look at some of the other countries. If education is going to lead us into the 21st century, and the country that is most educated, and the people that are most educated are going to be those people that lead us into the 21st century, let's look. China, 96.8% literacy rate. Korea, 97.97, almost 100%. Sweden, 99%. Singapore, 97%. And you're saying 75% of African American kids. Now, this number doesn't change too much if you want to expand it on a national level. I mean, the kids in North Carolina, African American kids in inner city schools in North Carolina, probably faring about the same. These kids are being marched into another prison slavery system. What else is out there for them? Well, I bring up Marva Collins because the way she ran her schools needs to be a model. Look, the model is not working in our school system. So if I'm an ex-basketball coach, if I'm losing every game, if I'm losing 3 out of 4 games every year, what's the chances of me being the basketball coach for a long time at that school? Slim and none, right? If I'm losing 3 out of 4 games. So the education system has 75% of its African American kids as seniors that can't read and write at grade level. They can't read and comprehend. One of the most important things that schools should be able to do for you is to teach you reading and comprehension, because you can take that anywhere in any particular field. If we're failing at this and we're continuing to run that same model every single year, how do we expect to get any results, any good results? It's a slave system. I'm unfortunately saying that there's some great teachers out there. I don't want to put this shadow on every teacher. There are some amazing teachers out there. But the education system that they have to teach under is what needs to change. Let's play the tape of Ulysses of Marva Collins, just about 3 or 4 minutes. This is who she is. This is how she ran her program. Now I want you to, after she finished, I want you to see your kid, your child, under this kind of system as opposed to what they're under today. Run the tape.
Well, our children, our 4-year-olds, our aim is to have them reading by Christmas. So we deal heavily on heavy doses of phonics. We start them with the multiplication tables. As soon as they learn to compute, to add, we start them with 2 times 3. We teach them the multiplication tables of 2s, 3s, and 4s. By Christmas, they're dividing and doing simple multiplication. They are reading, or they begin with Aesop's fables. Then they begin with the American folk rhymes, when we read and the English folk tales, The Little Red Hen. We point out that the moral of that story is if you don't work, you don't eat. And that's the motto of our school. Near lunchtime, every child will say, if you don't work, you don't eat. And I think really school should be a minute society where children learn to function in a larger scope, in a larger world. It seems now that school becomes more or less just a bypassing thing that children have to go to until you're a certain age, instead of really making them love school and love learning, where they become lifters and not leaners in the world. Because every man who lifts feels better than the man who leans. You have to reach high. You have to aim high, okay? So don't feel badly, because Shakespeare is very difficult to read in the first place, and this is a tough-rate literature book, okay? Okay, 9 times 9 is what? 81. Okay, he said, weary nights, 9 times 9 shall he dwindle, peak and pine. Though his bark cannot be lost, yet it shall be tempest-tossed. Look what I have.
The thing of Cardor lives.
How can we ever separate reading and thinking from any subject? A child can't do well in typing class unless they know how to read and think. A child can't do well in biology, chemistry, or anything unless they have the ability to think.
Belief.
Okay, he said, oh, hallelujah, you're reading, praise the Lord.
Double, toil
Good
and
witch.
trouble. Fire burning, cauldron bubble. Fill it with a finished snake, and the cauldron boiling bake. I have Newton Tower frog, Willabet and Tonga dog, Alex forks and bland with steam, lizard legs and hollow swings. For a charm for power, trouble, like a hellbound boiling bubble.
Very good, Helena, 3rd stanza.
Marva's curriculum concentrates on the basics: reading, math, and composition. There are no frills, no athletics, not even recess. The children stay in one room all day with one teacher. Because of this concentrated effort, Westside sets high goals for its students.
Those who cannot read will be reading, all right, as has happened this past year. Those who are already reading will be superior readers, as well as writers, computers, and math, that they will simply develop 3 times as fast as they would normally in another setting.
People predict I determine. I determine how I wish to live my life, how I can make it succeed, and keep it joyful. No one but me can do this. No one but me.
Ian's essay reflects one of our major premises of education here at Westside Prep. You are in charge of your own life. No one can tell you how to shape your life, what to do. We try to give the children the inspiration and the determination. We try to draw out of them the very best that's in them, to give them the skills that they need for the future so that they can be the creative, productive people we know they can be.
This because we all are smart in some way. No one is better than the other. Just remember, people predict, you determine.
That's Marva Collins. That's who she is. That's the program. She's passed away, and her system is still being ran probably in 5 or 6 states and schools in 5 or 6 states, I believe. Because the system is in place, but it should be nationwide. If we're not getting the result from the school system that is in place today, if we have, and I keep saying this, 75% of our teenagers in the state of California are not reading and writing at grade level. That is a major problem. We just saw the Olympics. The U.S. Olympic basketball team got beat in a couple of exhibition games, and all hell broke loose. What's going to happen? Oh my goodness, the whole country's talking about it. Stephen A. Smith, all the sports journalists are talking about it. Oh, America's always, they're going to lose. Why are we concerned so much about the Olympics when the academic Olympic playing field, the classroom, over 50% of our kids can't read or write at grade level? Now, the future belongs to those who are more skillful and more academically skillful. The future. Why do you see Koreans coming to California and they dominating the Mid-Wilshire area with businesses, with all types of different opportunities for themselves? Why do you see the Chinese coming here building and owning big companies and doing all kinds of things? Well, the literacy rate is almost 100%. Where you see the literacy rate so high, you will see those people dominating and doing things of a creative nature. We need to change this. We need to change this immediately. We need to have a war on education. And parents, if the education system won't change, we got to change. What happened with, I talked to my wife the other day about this. What happened with Ben Carson? He wasn't a great student in school. Your child may be not a great student in school. I certainly wasn't in school. But Ben Carson, what he did, his mom did actually, she came home and told her kids, "You're watching too much television." She said she turned the television off because she heard from a professor that she worked for. She asked a question to the professor who had books all over his house. She said, "Do you read all these?" He says, "Probably." And he had classical music playing in the background. And when she asked him, he was walking around with a book in his hand. When she went home, her kids had the TV on. So the difference is he glorified in education and reading and that. And they glorified in television. And what would their life be like in 20 years if they continued the same? So what she said is, "I'm going to take his life home." So what she did was she got home, she told her kids, only 2 programs a week. You pick the programs. But otherwise you're going to read 2 books a month, and you're going to give me book reports on those books. Can you imagine after 6 months of 2 books a month, what they became? Ben Carson was a DNF student. He ended up being one of the most incredible neurosurgeons in the world. How do you do that? He was a DNF student. Now he's an incredible neurosurgeon, one of the tops in the world. How does that happen? She just came home and says, 2 books a month. Parents, if your kids are reading 2 books a month instead of being on those video games for 2, 3 hours, 4 hours a day, who would they become? So half the problem is the school, half the problem is what goes on at home. So we have to share the blame. Because if our kids are not being taught the right way in school, then we need to teach them the right way at home. And if we don't know the right way to teach them, it's our job to find someone to come in to do that. The next leaders of this world are being created today. Margaret Collins understood that. Bill Cosby understands that. The school system, either they don't care or they don't know. Because if my system is bringing in 75% of a certain student, whether they're black, Hispanic, white, doesn't matter, 75% failure rate, that's a failure rate. Means I need to change the system. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know the same system will create the same result. But that's what we're getting. So my attitude now is, hey, don't worry about the school, they're not going to change. Parents, I'm speaking to you now. Every parent out there, from California to Maine to Chicago, I don't care where you're at, parents, your kids should be reading about 1 hour, 2 hours a day, at least, minimum. What reading does is it exercises the brain. It's like working out, right? Reading develops your comprehension level. And now, once you learn to comprehend better, you can do better in math, in science, and other subjects. The problem is comprehension. The solution is reading. We just have to read more. Ben Carson's mom changed his life, even though she couldn't read and write. She took that message to the kids. Her other kid, Ben's brother, is a well-renowned engineer. And Ben ended up being a neurosurgeon. She changed their life. Margaret Collins has the right direction, the right answer. Bless her heart for all she did. Her legacy will live on. We don't talk about her much, but what she taught in our schools was strictly amazing. And not in our schools, but in her personal schools. And it's still being taught today throughout the country in select schools, but it should be mandated across the country. She had a winning program. And that winning program needs to be in inner city schools, because it's the inner city schools that are lacking, and the inner city schools that are going to continue to get. They're not going to change the system because I say so, because you say so. The system is the system. Math, science, English, whatever they teach there. But whatever they're teaching is not working for the masses of our people. And what will happen in the future if it continues this way? Well, if they're not ready when they graduate from high school, and others are more ready, and they're competing against China and North Korea for the opportunities out there. In North Korea is at almost 100% literacy rate. They're serious. China is not playing. Almost 100% literacy rate. It's like being in a race. China, America, Korea, Sweden, we're in a race with them. But they're giving a 40-yard head start. So we're 40 yards behind in a 100-yard dash. You can't win that race unless you're running against a turtle. You can't win that race. We have to improve in this area. And this is why I want to put so much time into it. When you look at 8th graders, this report came out a couple of years ago. Black 8th graders, only 18% of black 8th graders could read and write at grade level. 47% were about average, and 35% below average. Wow, amazing. All right, college athletes can now get paid. My final report. About time. About time college athletes can now get paid, just like any other college student can get paid on their own likeness and what have you, even today. College athletes could not get paid on their likeness before. And so this was a problem. But the NCAA says, okay, we give in. You can get paid on your likeness, but the money that the NCAA makes is billions of dollars a year. So you gave in a little bit, but the big chunk of money that you got coming in, you keep. Some of that money, look, if I give a concert, let's say I'm Kanye West. I'm Kanye West, I give a concert, 100,000 people show up, right? You arrange the concert you're promoting. So obviously you're going to get a big chunk of the payday. But if I'm the talent that brings the people in there, I'm going to get a large chunk of that payday as well, right? So the athletes are the talent that bring the people to the stadiums. The Michigans and Ohio State, over 100,000 people show up at those games. That's more people than go to a professional game. And you won't let the athlete touch any of that money. They can get money based on their own likeness and creating their own deals with these big companies out there, but you continue to make billions of dollars a year, the NCAA. You pay your coaches millions of dollars a year, the top ones. And the athletes come in there, many of them will not be able to be paid on their likeness because they're not first string, or they're second string or third string athletes. One of the top tier athletes will be able to get that type of money that the NCAA has allowed them to be able to receive. Now, some of the big cash that the NCAA is making, the billions of dollars that's coming in, must be funneled to the athlete. So you're still, you're on the right track, NCAA, but you're not there yet. You're controlling a $1 billion industry, and the talent that brings that industry together you're not taken care of properly. And the talent that brings that industry together over the history of the NCAA, those athletes that have come and gone, they could use some of the billions of dollars that you rake in every year. Those athletes that had broken legs or broken arms or some of the brain injuries that happen in the NFL are happening in college sports as well. What happens to the money that some of these athletes that can't get paid on their own likeness? What happens to them? They're second and third string, but they still go to practice. They still have to be part of your program, right? What happens to them? This is amazing to me. 50 years from now, the NCAA is going to seem like slavery. We won't be here, but they'll be looking at the NCAA as a slave system. I predict that. This is amazing to me that a organization that big, NCAA, with billions of dollars coming in on an annual basis from these young athletes, who most of them did not come in wealthy. Most of them came from very poor families. You're making billions of dollars and you don't have to get your neck broke, your back broke, your knees broke. You're sit up in the press box smoking a $50 cigar, enjoying life, making all the money while the athlete goes out there and busts his ass. I just can't see where that makes sense, folks. All right, we finished with this. The motivational message today is this. You plan, you prepare, you attack. Parents, I'm talking to you. Your kid may not be the best student in school, but school is not going to find out what your kid is gifted in. That's up to you. You spend more time with him or her. Find out what their talent is. Once you find out what their talent is, feed it. They may be good in this woman I was watching on television the other day. She said her son, autistic son, just didn't seem to get into anything. But when he grabbed the drumsticks, he started making some noise and it made sense. And so she said, well, let me buy him some drumsticks. And she did, and he started playing every day. And now he's not only pretty good, he is very good. She found something that was of interest to him. And she planted seed into that. Parents, it's up to you and I to find the thing that our child is gifted in. The schools won't do it. And then we plant seed in it. You see what I'm saying? You find it, you plant seed. Prepare, plan what your child is good in, or yourself. What your vision is for yourself. Prepare, go out and get the knowledge. Without that, you're nothing. So you plan to fixate in your mind what it is that you want. Prepare the knowledge. How hard are you willing to work at the thing you want? Young kid I was coaching in basketball said, I want to be the next Kobe Bryant. I asked him, how hard are you willing to work on the thing that you want? He said, well, I can go out about 5-10 minutes a day. I said, you said Kobe Bryant. You didn't say Derek Fisher. You said Kobe Bryant, right? You did say Kobe, right? How hard are you willing to work on the thing you want? Number 3, attack. You're going to lose. As a salesperson, you're going to call a bunch of people and they're going to say no to you. They're going to curse you out. They're going to call you stupid. Whatever they're going to do. And you keep going. You keep attacking. When a lion gets up for his dinner or his breakfast in the morning, he's got cubs at home. She's got cubs at home. There's no, I'm not going to come home with food. They don't register that way. The lion thinks I'm going to come home with food, irregardless of what's going on out there. He attacks. You need to attack the thing that you're looking to do. So you plan, get a visual of what you want. You prepare, getting all the information that you need, study, go to the laboratory. I call study the laboratory. So go to the laboratory and study again and again and again. And once you do that, once you're ready, you attack the thing that you want. Knocking on the door until it opens. God bless you. I love you. We'll see you next week.